Let's make a bunch of charts and graphs. This is from the 6A class activity. It's a walkthrough. It'll be kind of fast, but you have the option of pausing it, rewinding, going back and watching over again, whatever it is you want. So if you open up the lesson 6A class activity and go directly to the first tab, it says gold pie charts. This worksheet, there's a graph that's kind of hard to read. It's a pie chart. I think we can do a better job with a pie chart. I'll show you how to do that. First of all, select the data you want to graph. So I'm selecting this. I clicked on cell D5. I did a range selection down to, what is that, D14, 10 rows, 1 column. I selected the cell. If you go up to insert, that's how it's labeled on mine. And then I'm going to move this over here a little bit so that the zoom controls are. So insert, and then there's a little chart here, insert pie or donut chart. And I'll just pick a basic pie chart. That gives us something a little bit more to work with. And I'm going to move it over here so I can look at the data a little bit better. This pie chart isn't exactly better as is, but let's make some improvements. If you want to label all of these countries, there's a couple of ways you can do that. If you click the data, the pie chart, and if you right click, you can do change or select data, and then the horizontal category access labels comes up here. Click edit, and access label range, you can click this little arrow thing that lets you select all of these cells over here. So I'll select the ones that are just to the left, the labels for the data set that we picked for our graph. And okay, that's one way to do it. The other way is if you come up here into the formula bar, the very first one is the name of the series. The second one is the x-axis or the labels. You'll see that says gold pie chart. That's the name of this worksheet. Cells C5 to C14. That's these right here that we just selected. And those dollar signs means that those values are anchored down. To the right, you'll see D5 to D14. That is the data we're working with, and it's series number 1, if that means anything to you. Okay, now having these down here, that's okay, but it's not as useful. I'm just going to delete those. And you can change the font. If you select this, you go to the home. I'll change it to Arial Narrow. That fits pretty well. That looks nice. You can put the chart title in here. You might put the chart title above in your document somewhere else. I'll just take it off there because I would just put it elsewhere. Usually I embed these type of graphics the type of graphs into a Word document where I might want to have some sort of a heading that for these the reference. Anyways, that's a different thing for another presentation later. Let's add some data labels. If you right click, add data labels. These are very useful. These give you the percent. That's not exactly, you can put that in there. We have that information to the left. I mean, if you look at this other pie chart, it doesn't have that. That can work. But instead of the numbers, let's look at the countries. So if you click on these data, let's see, click on a data label. You want to make sure all of them are selected. Otherwise, you're only affecting one data label. I'm going to right click on format data label. A bunch of things come over to the left, and you can call it like the category name. Let's do that. And let's take off the value. All we just care about, we can see the proportion of that there. But you can, so I'll just keep that there. We want to have the show leader lines, and I'll show you what those are in just a minute. So if I click on just one of these, you'll notice that the United States has the dots around it, means it's selected. The other ones don't. I can drag it, and I won't be dragging everything else. And when I drag it outside of the area, the leader line up here. And so you can see that one. So this pertains to Germany. This is the IMF, Italy, and you can drag these however you want. As long as you keep them fairly close to where the pie chart is, the leader lines are there. It'll point to, if you drag it like way over here, so there's no leader line in there because that would look kind of confusing. So I'm going to grab the Russia one. I'll move it back up here so we have the leader line. If you don't see a leader line, just move it a little bit. Do the same thing with Japan, and then the leader line will appear. So now we have a graphic that looks much better than the original one. It makes more sense. You can tell what country is what country. And you can adjust these colors too. I'm going to click it once, I'll click it again. So now just the United States is selected. Let's make that one, I don't know. Let's give it a fill of black. But you can change whatever colors you want. That would make most sense and could better communicate this information to your target audience. That's a gold pie chart. Let's look at the beach ball bar chart. What makes this kind of confusing is that these temperatures are not in order. It's harder to see what the correlation is. Let's sort the data first of all. To sort this data set, I'm going to select this. I'll select the table from weekend in August all the way down to 28. So C4 down to E9. And then under the home tab, to sort, I'll go up here where it says sort and filter. I'll do a custom sort. And there's this little box here that says my data has header that's selected. And because of that, when I can sort it, I'm going to sort it by temperature. And you can add as many of these levels of sorting that you want. So with this, if you were to add a level, like for example, weekend in August, what this does is it sorts it first by temperature. That's the column D, from smallest to largest. Then having weekend in August, it will next sort that. So if you have two temperatures that are the same, it will sort it first week depending on alphabetical order. I mean, you can do this, you can set this up for whatever table you have. We have multiple levels of sorting. And so now I have it sorted from the coldest temperature to the hottest temperature. So let's start, I'm going to start making these, my tables, beach balls sold. I go to insert, and I'll make it a bar chart. And I can right click and do the select data, but it's a little bit faster if I just click the data set. I go up to the middle between the two commas. I'm just going to grab the temperature. And that's down here at the bottom. And if you have numbers like that at the bottom, what you will want to do is add some access titles. So we'll add a primary horizontal title that is temperature. And let's add a primary vertical title. I'm going to change the font to Arial Narrow. That's the font that I like. And this is more of something that I like to do. You don't have to do it yourself, but I'm going to get rid of these lines. We can add data labels again. If you click the data set, so now you'll see each of these are highlighted. I'm going to right click on Format Data Series. Oh, and before I do that, let me change the gap width to about 10%. Or you can change it wherever you want. Change it to something that makes sense to you. I'm going to delete what's called the chart title on here because I'll have that embedded somewhere in the graph. We have these axes. If you right click these axes, you can format the axis and have it go like this. Has a minimum 0, maximum 30. You can set that however you want, whatever makes sense to you. All of that looks kind of small. I'll give it probably a 15 font. And then one more thing. I was going to add the data labels. Add data labels. So I right click the data series, or left click to select the data series, and then I right click so I can add data labels. And there are the data labels, but let's make them You can change where they are, vertical alignment, middle, center. You can put them right at, let's put them right at the bottom. Text direction, custom angle, bottom center. Well, you can put, and then you can grab ones individually too. You can move them around if you don't like where they, so grab the wrong one. Grab the data label itself. So I just grab one data label and I can put that down here. Anyways, you can play around with them, put them wherever you want. Label options. Let's see. The inside base. Well, so I'm doing these one at a time. Instead of doing one at a time, you can pick them all at the same time. That'll move all of them down there. And then maybe you want to change the color. If you set, let's make this black. Give it some more contrast. These numbers will be kind of hard to see unless you make them white. But this one, because that data point is so small, let's go ahead and make this one black. And we can pull it just a little bit above. Oh. Anyways, you can fiddle around with these as much as you like. Something that makes most sense to your audience. I'm going to put that in here. Oh, and I should mention this too. When I'm putting this type of a graphic inside of a Word document, it makes sense to have an outline, but I don't always like to see the outline. So what you can do, you can pick the border. Let's give it a solid line border of white. White will not show up on a white piece of paper. So now it looks like there's no border. It's actually there. That's a little trick I do. I'm publishing reports. And by making this a little bit taller, it makes it look like you can contrast those numbers a little bit more. And so now we've got all these numbers, got this graph about, I think looks a little bit better what it was before. And so you can see the difference. You can see the correlation between the temperature and the number of beach balls sold. So that's our beach ball bar chart. Let's now go to gun deaths. This graph is misleading. It goes from 0 down to 800 the wrong way. But we want to graph the number of deaths. So I'll pick the data that we have. Go to insert. And let's give it, it's a time series. And so, of course, this zoom thing has to be right in the middle of it. So let's give it a line graph. And I'm going to get rid of this. The chart title looks okay, but it looks better if you can have a different chart title. And I don't like these little lines here. That's the personal preference. This isn't labeled very well. I mean, you want the years on here. So let's add the x-axis. I'm going to put that in here. And so if you put in anything you want, you can adjust it later on. So I just grabbed a small selection from column C, but I know that my data set goes from C5 to C27, which is immediately adjacent to the data. So I'm just going to edit it in here. Now I've got all these years. The years are sideways. It's not as easy to read. So I'm going to format this axis. And usually I just play around with these until I get it to where I want them to be. Specify interval unit. Let's try 5. And then it automatically changed the alignment, but you can't, there are other ways you can change the alignment in here too. So which one of those? Oh yeah, custom angle. Let's give it a 0 degree. You can put there if you want it upside down or whatever it is. Oh, that's 18 degrees. Add. less or equal to 90. Okay, let's give it 0. I'm going to change the font to Arial Narrow. I'll change this one to Garamond. It's a nice font. And these numbers will be formatted however you have these numbers formatted. Let's add some labels in here. Go to chart design or access titles. Number of gun deaths. I think that's what it is. We can fix that if it's not what it is. Yeah, gun deaths in Florida. Oh, murders. Let's see. Is that what it says? Number of murders, firearm murders. Okay, instead of gun deaths. You can always go back and change these. I think the year, that ought to be, hopefully would be fairly intuitive enough. So I mean, that might be a personal preference if you label the year or not. But I'll show you one more thing you might want to think about doing. You don't have to do this because we're looking at a time when a statute was put into place and there's a change before and after. Sometimes it's nice to be able to compare. Let me give this a value. I'll show you what I'll do. I'm going to add the 0 right here, and then I'll make a change. So that law was put into place in 2005. So what I did is I put a 0 down, and I said, let's put whatever it is in the cell above, and I copied it all the way down. But I come down to 2005. I'll give it a value of 1,000. That's the maximum of the access. So now we have 1,000. There's a change in there. I'll select this series, and I selected it by clicking on the first cell. Oh yeah, let me show you that other trick. If you hit Control arrow, it goes down as far as you have data. And so I'm holding down Shift Control down, and that grabbed a little bit more than I wanted. I let go of the control, and then I can move it back to where I only have the cells with the data that I want on there selected. And Control C copies that data set, and I click on where the graph that's already been created and has all these formats. I can paste it, Control V, and now I've got this data. But that's not what I want to look like. So I'm going to right click, and I'll do the Format Data Series. Oh, no, that's not what I want. I want to change series chart type. And now this custom combination comes up. The orange one, that's the one we want to change. Let's change that to a bar chart, or clustered column as they call it. Click OK. And then I'm going to format this by getting rid of all the spaces. And then I'll change the fill color. That's a gap width. There's no gap width, so it looks basically one big bar. And I'm going to make it a lighter orange that has some contrast to it. And then this, the access, I'll make it a maximum of 1,000. Oh. I want 1,000, not 200. How'd that get in there? Okay, so now we can see the data. And so you can see that the change when 2005 happened. Well, I'm going to format these numbers so that they have this. And that should give, oh, that didn't quite give that, but you can format these in here too. Anyway, this graph looks a little bit better. Let's put the polar graph down here so we can compare. Oh, got plenty of space up here. To make the graph taller, the numbers will seem like they contrast more. Little trick from How to Lie with Statistics. Okay, and I'll make this probably what, a 15 font, so it's a little more readable. And so now you have a different graph you can compare, that you can get an idea as to what this type of a law might have done to the number of gun murders. Okay, Okay, let's go to the vote line. And this is the last graph we're doing. So 53 votes and 517 votes. That looks like they may not have represented those numbers correctly. But let's give it a bar chart. Let's see. I selected the data at cells D5 and 6. And then I'm going to insert. And you can do what's this recommended chart, and it will give you something that you might want to do. And of course, the zoom bar is right in the middle of the way. So I'll grab the pie chart, and we're looking at a donut chart if you want to make it just like the last one. And I'm going to take this chart title off. And these labels right here off. And what I want to do is I'll come in here and I'll, right between the two commas, it's just like the x-axis on the other graphs we had before, I'm selecting what this data means. So I put in C5 and C6 in there, selected the cell, hit enter so that it takes. And now let's change the color. So I have that change. If you right click, you can do format data point. This thing comes over to the left. Let's give it a, let's see, what is it? Yes is red. And, oh, wait, yes is green. Let's make that consistent. Yes is green, so we're filling it. Yes did 10%. Well, that's confusing. So votes no. Well, it looks like saying, look, let's put in no is, if they want no is red. Let's make it consistent with what the numbers say, not exactly what the graphic looks like. Okay, that's pretty close. And then I'm going to add some data labels. So I'll click out of here. When I click it again, both of these are selected. I'm adding data labels, and I'm going to make them white so they contrast. So the data labels are selected. I'll give it a Arial narrow font. Where this little letter thing is, you can change the color on these. So these are going to be white. And the number works okay. How many votes? But I'm going to add, if you want to put in the number of votes in there, I'm just going to write in the series name, series label. All right, let's see. There's a quote, vote. And then if I come in here and format the data labels, I can add the series name. So votes 513 votes, or you can put in category name. Now the category name might work a little better. So yes, okay. Oh, let's this box fill in a little bit better. And so now that I have these data labels, we go back and change the color again. So they contrast, put bold. And so no 517, yes 53. And then so there's your corrected graphic. Okay, well, hopefully that was useful, and you can go back and you get some ideas about how you can make some type of graphics using data visualizations using data that you have.